Hello, everybody. So my name is Yoann Klein. I am very pleased, very kind of excited to be here today to talk during this Security Summit 2021. I'm standing right now in our Cybersecurity and Transparency Center in Brussels, in Belgium. My role is a senior cybersecurity advisor. And what I will talk about today is about working together to build a secure, digital, intelligent world, right? So like I said, my role is an advisor, and what I would like, first of all, to describe a bit what that means, or start what that doesn't mean, actually. I'm not a salesman. I am an engineer. I am a tech guy. So I'm not here for selling you product or solutions. That's not the purpose of my role. As an advisor, I'm more here to actually share with you the thoughts and the vision about Huawei on how we can contribute, how we are committed to build and to support the building of this secure, intelligent world, right? But because advising is not a unilateral task, and it can't be only me telling you something, I really want to hear from you. I want to listen to you. So I will really encourage you at the end of the presentation to take contact with me, to reach out to me. I had a couple of people already who reached out to me yesterday, so I'm very pleased of this, because that's part of my role as an advisor. It's also to advocate for you, understand your business, your challenges, and actually advocate for you across Huawei, across the company. And that's what we do every single day here with my colleagues and I, is we advocate for you. For your challenges across the product lines, across the R&D centers in China, but also in one of the 25 R&D centers in this European region or all over the world. It's very important. And I believe that's all what this center is about. It's about creating collaboration, creating a discussion, opening a dialogue. And when I look at the journey we accomplished for the last 2 years from here, that is just tremendous. We have been welcoming more than 2,000 people here, very broad type of profiles. Some of them were very technical, so we had software engineers, we had pen testers, security architects, other type of profile, a bit less technical, like policy makers, regulators, academics as well, very interesting. And what a rich experience it was to discuss with those people on cybersecurity challenges and issues. To be fair, we didn't always agree on everything with everybody, but that's what is about discussion. It's about debating and looking what others are doing to just improve yourself. So very tremendous experience, and which help us to better understand the different industries, right? Another thing I'm really proud of when I'm talking about this center, it's product evaluation. This is the only place in this part of the world where a customer can evaluate our products, and if it doesn't feel comfortable or doesn't feel that he has the capability to do it, he can actually delegate this power to third party, a trusted third party, and those people can come in the center in Brussels and evaluate the product both on the black box mode and on the white box mode. So I have actually no doubt that most of the audience understand what black box and white box is. But let me, if you allow me, just let me give you a few words on this. So black box is really you actually receive a box and you know nothing about it. It's a black box. You just see what you have, what you can find on internet and what is publicly disclosed, and you try to evaluate and compromise or rip apart this product. So that is a possibility from here. But we also offer the white box, where the evaluator can have access to a lot of information up to the source code. So yes, from this center, customer, third party can come and evaluate the source code of our product with access to detailed technical information, with also access with a privilege connection with some software engineers from R&D to understand how we are developing our codes, what are our software engineering practices. That is actually very important for us. That's very important because as a global ICT provider, we have, I think, this kind of responsibility to raise the bar of transparency. And that's what we do by giving access to the source code. I think you may have heard this mantra of Huawei already, that trust or trustworthiness should be based on fact, and fact should be verifiable, and who's best positioned to verify than the customer or a third party. So very important for us, this part. To be fair, due to the pandemic situation, we had kind of a bit less of this type of activity the last months, the last year. But when I see all the interest we had before the pandemic, I have no doubt that many organizations will request to come back as soon as the travel restriction is softened a bit, right? Yeah, speaking about pandemic, I think one of my colleagues already briefly in previous talk mentioned how the pandemic accelerated this digital transformation, and I think that's something that we have all heard about already a couple of times, but it's so true that pandemic has been pushing more and more digital transformation. We should be cautious not to confuse also digitalization, digital transformation with pure internet consumption. I was listening to a podcast a couple of weeks ago mentioning that yeah, the YouTube consumption as from the early months of the pandemic has been raised by 15%, so 1.5. I think we also experienced this kind of downgrade version of Netflix for a so small period of time due to a lot of internet consumption. But in my sense, that is not really digital transformation. That's pure internet consumption. The other thing I wanted to mention about digital transformation and the link with the pandemic, I think it appeared quite clearly for many people also that this journey toward transformation, digital transformation, should be done cautiously. I am a parent of 3 kids. I think we are all the people in my situation or parents have experienced this school at home, and I think one thing we learned, all of us, based on this, is we can't just simply hope that everything will be digital and it will be better. That's just a balance between the digital world and the physical world, because one thing that really, once again, I learned from this experience is how important where the physical interaction between the kids and the teachers, between the kids themselves actually emulating themselves when they were learning. So it's one thing really we should look at, is how to use digitalization to improve life of people. Yeah, what I wanted to say about digitalization. Yeah, maybe one thing is very clear when I'm speaking about digitalization, is that all governments all over the world, they agree on one single thing, is that they can't, on digital world, they want to leverage this digital transformation to actually ensure the economic recovery. That is very clear. They hope and they put hope on the tech industry to be able to create new jobs, to create growth again. And I think that Huawei, as a global ICT provider, but all the tech industry, we have in that sense a responsibility. We have the responsibility to empower people, to actually create the equitable chances and opportunities for all the industries to actually leverage these opportunities of digital transformation. No one should be left behind, basically. And if I'm narrowing down now to the cybersecurity aspect, we also, as a tech industry, we have the responsibility to create the necessary trust and trustworthiness, which will enable the foundation of the digital, future digital intelligent world. And for that, I think we should set principles which are guiding our choices in the future. The choices obviously have to be debated, have to be discussed, but one thing for sure is that they have to entrenched in its roots and its core two main principles: the cybersecurity and the privacy. With that long introduction, what I will do is I will walk through the center, and what I propose is now to discuss about these technologies which are underlying below or behind the world digitalization, which sometimes can appear like a buzzword, but what we're talking about behind, it's about AI, it's about cloud, it's about 5G, and I would like to show you how I believe we have a collective responsibility in this field, and how these technologies are impacting cybersecurity and vice versa, right? So what I propose now is, let's move a bit through the center. What I can do is, or maybe, yeah, forget this slide. Behind this screen, actually, you have a first laboratory. I was mentioning black box pen testing. Maybe you can go here, Marianne. So we have the black box behind this screen, and upstairs we have the lab facilities for the white box pen testing, right? So before going to the 5G, AI, and cloud, let me have a few words on privacy. In Huawei, we have enshrined a lot of privacy principles in our business processes, in our development processes, to actually preserve and protect privacy. We value the privacy of our customers more than everything else. And that's why we have been building this privacy protection framework. We have been building governance systems which comply with all laws and regulation in the different countries we are operating. As I mentioned, laws and regulation and privacy. I think one word is coming in everyone's mind. It's GDPR. GDPR is a sound and a good regulation. Actually, we have been taking part to the initial step of building GDPR at EU level, even before May 2018, when it entered into force. We actually participated before that to some technical workshop to discuss what were the best ways to actually preserve and protect privacy. And since then, we have been working very hard to implement these principles into our different processes to be compliant with the GDPR. To be fair, I don't like really much the word compliancy when it's coming to GDPR, because we know that it is a risk-based regulation. So what does that mean? It's not something you just achieve at some point. It's a never-ending story. GDPR was just the starting point, and we know we'll never be done. That's why we are continuously audited, actually having a good track of records and an excellent level of achievement when it comes to compliancy. But we know that's like I said, something which will never be done, adapting always ourselves to the new threats. You might ask yourself, okay, Huawei, that's a big company. You actually dealing and making business in various amount of domains. So what's your link actually on GDPR? Well, we have different responsibilities according to different market or domain we are talking about. If I'm talking about selling a base station, selling a core network or a switch or router to a customer, we have in the GDPR sense, we have the role of data processor. We are not the data controller in that domain. The data controller are the operators. Those people are managing, are handling, are responsible for the data in their networks. We are just equipment supplier. But true that in other domain, we are data controller. Let's take the example and that you know actually, because you are also facing this, how you manage your data for your own employees. The same applies to Huawei. I said that GDPR was a sound and good regulation, and that's why we actually applied GDPR rules. Oh, seems to have issue of sound. Yeah, continue. So we applied GDPR rules actually and at the global level, because we do believe that GDPR offered the right privacy requirement for a company. Another use case where we are data controller, it's when we are producing this type of device. Smart devices have been and are giving an unprecedented convenience, that's for sure. In the same time, we know that it's processing some user data to bring this benefit to the users. That's why very soon we understood that we had and we pay a strong attention to put the control to the user when it comes to actually decide what kind of data, how the data can be shared and to whom. It's all the control is given to the user. Yes. And I think maybe one thing it's important to know when I'm talking about smart devices and Huawei, which actually helps you to understand our position is, or to understand our business model regarding this. We are not a Google or a Facebook. We are not monetizing the data. We're not making money out of the data. That's not what we do. We sell product, we sell solutions. So that's why even for these type of devices, that was so natural for us to actually push for that all the data which is processed, it's only for the benefit of the user, and the user is always in control of the data and its use. We actually apply 4 principles when it comes to data privacy, and we develop and we design such product. First, the transparency. So the permission of any type of action is only given by the user, and the user is actually at the decision maker for any type of action on user data, right? Then we have the user benefits. Like I said, everything we do or everything the device is doing when it's processing the data is for the benefit of the user. It's for a better experience, more accurate information. Then cybersecurity. We apply the state-of-the-art best encryption practice, and all the user data is encrypted in our equipment. Even biometrics, fingerprints, everything is encrypted. And finally, compliancy and regulation. I mentioned about it. We applied and we comply with all laws and regulation in the countries where we are making business. So you understand that all of these contribute to the fact that it's actually, we are very comfortable to the fact that and to commit ourselves to preserve and to protect privacy in our products, right? Okay. So that was about privacy, what I wanted to say. Like I said, now let's move a bit to something a bit more technical, technological, and at the foundation of digitalization. And I think one big technology that we often forget that it's really the foundation of all digital world, it's cloud. And actually, it's quite linked to some data privacy issues and challenges clearly. But let's find out what is going out there in the cloud, what is changing, what is shifting in the cloud landscape. And how actually cybersecurity is actually impacting these trends or vice versa. So first, all this idea or this whole idea that people are moving more and more progressively to the cloud, that's sort of a given, right? what we see rather is people putting more and more critical assets on the cloud. Actually, we had this first phase where people were kind of dipping their toe into the water, taking some time to actually understand all what this cloud thing was about. But we are now in 2021. We have been suffering 1 year and a half of pandemic. It's quite clear that now most, if not all, organizations have some kind of cloud presence and are running application and workload in cloud. So before that I'm talking about these new trends and how they're impacting cybersecurity, I think that's interesting to first go back a few years ago and understand why, beyond the pandemic, why organizations have been moving their stuff to the cloud at the first place. Okay. And I think that was linked to this initial operational benefit and promises from the cloud provider, clearly oriented on the operational aspect. Like, for instance, we remember the cloud promises was higher scalability, very high uptimes, better failover strategies, a quick and fast provisioning. That was the promises of the cloud provider. And to be fair, so what happened during the first phase is that the people, what we do is we just actually tend to replicate what we had in our initial data center to the cloud. It was kind of lift and shift strategy. And as we were getting used with the different cloud provider, their functionalities, we better understood. We actually started to use these native services to help us along the way. And next to that, you had this strategy, or this technological evolution at the cloud provider, moving from the traditional physical server renting to virtual machines. Then you had the containers. And I think the last buzzword, or let's say the last abstraction level nowadays is serverless, which offer you and is allowing organization to run services and application, even thinking about server. And to be fair, if you put yourself in the shoes on an operator, or if you're yourself in an operation team, that's a massive win. That's really a big win, not to actually look after or manage your operation system anymore. Less and less the application level also. If you're a developer, looking at some cloud provider, you just drop your file on an S3 bucket and that's it. Well, I know I'm speaking now during a cybersecurity conference, mentioning S3 bucket as a huge win. I like to be controversial sometimes, but I am one of those believers that if S3 buckets are very well configured, they are still a massive win for organization and customers. But you see, all was linked to this operational benefit. And next to that, you had also the cybersecurity promises from the cloud provider. Like, okay, you have for the moment a bunch of network appliances, sometimes very expensive, anti-DDoS, firewall, WAF, SIEM, load balancer, or you name it. As we move to the cloud, what happened is that the cloud provider were more and more able to manage these functionalities through native services. And that was also a massive win. But everything I just told about cloud, those amazing functionalities, if we look at today, that's also sort of a given. That's not where the organization are looking for extra added value. Or when we think about the coming evolution, digital transformation, that's not new requirement. And that's why I would like to speak about the different discussion we had with our stakeholders here and mention a couple of these big trends that we see which will impact cybersecurity. Number one, multi-cloud. Today, organizations are not using one single cloud provider anymore. They're actually using multiple private and public cloud. They're running different type of application, and that you can easily understand. Every single organization just want to use the best-in-class service, whatever the cloud provider is. What they want to do is actually expand their failover strategy by having multiple suppliers. If you think about simple contractual management or capability management, that's kind of healthy practice to avoid lock-in with one single supplier. So it in one hand, if you look at the business side, it might be very appealing. On the other hand, if I'm putting my cybersecurity hats as cybersecurity professional hats, that becomes to be a real challenge, because I know by fact that securing one single cloud provider is already hard enough, but it becomes much harder if you try to, and you tend to secure two or more of that. And that's why what we have been seeing the couple of years, talking about shared responsibility model, that will take even more importance in the future. That will become really at paramount of importance. And we will need to go deep in that direction, even given more granularity in the different roles and responsibilities. Because these steps of, or this philosophy, which was not my server, not my problem, I think that some people might have in the past, that's over. Or the fact that the cloud provider should, as a is responsible to provide secure computing power, secure network, database, storage functionalities. That's also sort of a given. Everybody understands this. That cloud provider has to set a comprehensive, to propose a comprehensive set of security functionalities. That's also a given. But now look at more something like the security professionals should learn how to perform multi-cloud security assessment. They must understand how to define the default configuration in their different cloud providers, so to better prepare themselves against misconfiguration, which could lead to resource or account compromise. Organizations should learn how to perform a multi-cloud security strategy. And we have guidelines, we have standards out there which are very helpful. So that was the number one big change in the cloud, multi-cloud. The second one is about the intelligent edge. So intelligent edge, it's linked to the fact that, okay, let's have a view on what is going on till now. What is cloud? It's actually generating data out of this type of device, like I said, or anything, any other IoT, sending it to the cloud where it's stored usually. Then you use your computing cycles, you do some analytics, and you extract the value out of it. That's a world we are very, very familiar with. But the shift we are seeing now is that all this computing, this analytics, this networking capabilities, they are actually extending out. They are extending out until the edge, until the things themselves. If you take the example of an autonomous car, for instance, what do you find there? It's actually a mini data center on wheels. You have your computing locally, you have your computing power, you have your network power, you have your analytics power capabilities as well. Actually managing, dealing with critical information, real-time information for taking actually critical decision. And in the same time, it has always to be connected to some cloud application to provide less sensitive or less critical information services, but very valuable for your user of your autonomous car. And that's just one example among others of this paradigm shift from the intelligent cloud to the intelligent edge. So that's really important to understand. And this shift, what we see, will bring obviously new requirement from organizations, from customers, and the most common one are obvious. It's very important speed, high importance of the latency, high importance on the locality or the proximity where the computing is done. But it will also bring new requirements in cybersecurity and privacy. Let's take the example of the health sector or the hospital. What will happen in the future if I have this edge computing capability? Should I actually compute my my data locally in my hospital, or should I send it to the cloud if I want to be careful and thoughtful about privacy issues? And in the same time, when we look at what happened to the different hospitals recently with all the ransomware campaigns, it's really not an easy question and an obvious question. And I think when I was speaking at the beginning of the talk about the collective responsibility, that's what I'm talking about. It's about creating this dialogue between the tech providers, the users, the regulators, and finding a way together to unlock these possibilities, unlock the digitalization, but in the same way respecting decision choices that we have to take collectively together, right? I'm seeing that I'm a bit running out of time. I wanted also to discuss about a major challenge or challenge trend that we see was linked to orchestration. That's also a domain of innovation where the pace of innovation is quite stunning. But that's just a teasing. So if you want to discuss about orchestration, I will just invite you guys to contact me afterwards and talk about during a virtual visit from the center. But I really would like now to discuss about AI and 5G. Yeah, AI. For the ones who are new in AI, you should consider AI as a pipeline. And what's the role of Huawei, by the way, in this story, is we are once again technology provider. We help solution provider. We help service provider. We help application developers to build their own AI pipelines. So concretely, we are proposing tools and algorithm such as our open AI platform, which is called Model Art. It contains an AI engine called Mindspore, and basically this helps the developers to build the AI application. And as you can imagine, we also support this pipeline by proposing computing and networking functionalities. So now you actually position a bit Huawei in all this AI story. So for discussing AI and the link to cybersecurity, I like actually to use this diagram behind me because it depicts well the big cycles in AI. It's not from me actually. I just took it or inspired myself from an ETSI document or ETSI document. But it summarizes well these two major elements of AI building: the data training and the data inference. And when you understand this, it's easy to make the link with the potential threat and attacks that we'll see against AI. So let me first have a couple of words on both of these major cycles. Data training. If I put it in a simple way, data training is about to create an accurate model which is able to reply or to give correctly an answer to your question most of the time. Okay, define a question and the AI model has to answer it correctly most of the time. For that, you need to gather data. It's important so your model can be trained on. And the quantity and the quality of the data you are able to gather is extremely important because that's what will define the level of predictability, the prediction that your level will be able to achieve. So let's see what happened during the training cycle. So like I said, first you gather the data, then you prepare the data. by preparing the data. Well, it's a bit quite complex, but basically you just reformat the data, you remove some errors, you randomize a bit the data to avoid some bias and unexpected or unwanted correlation. And once you have prepared all your data, you actually define your model, because we have researchers, we have data scientists which have been creating models for many years already. Maybe you have heard about this simple model, which is image comparison or focus specialized in image recognition. So if they're a cat, yes, no, and the AI model can say, yes, it's a cat, no, it's not a cat. You have other models which are more specialized in the text sequences. You have other models which are dedicated for numerical data, etc., etc. So you need to choose a model which actually applies to the use you want to do or your question you want to raise in AI. Once you have been selecting your model, obviously you have then to use the data set you have been preparing, and that's where you train actually your model. And that's where you progressively and incrementally improve your model's ability to respond correctly to your question. But at some point, you need to see if your model is any good. So that's the next step about testing, about evaluation. So you use a subset of your data set to avoid some bias, and actually you try your model against with this data. This is meant to actually see how your data model will perform in the real life, right? And then when you are pleased with the result, you have eventually a last step, which is kind of optimization, fine-tuning. So to really reach the quality or the level of prediction that you expect your model to have. Okay, and then your model is ready to be deployed, ready to be in operation, and that's the inference data cycle. It's when you connect your model to the real world, to the real data, which is doing real data curation, which is delivering real data results. And on during this phase, obviously you have a closed loop management, which enables your data to be continuously improved. That's how basically AI is working. So when you look at the different attacks or types of threats facing these different cycles, you have both internal attacks, external attacks. Usually, we say that more internal attacks are referring to the training phase, whereas external are more referring to the inference phase. Etsy actually mentioned a couple of them. You have, for instance, data poisoning, the most obvious during your training phase. An attacker is just introducing bad data, so your model is badly trained, is not able to give the answer you expect him to give. You have the reverse engineering. If an attacker is able to reverse engineer your model, he's also able at some point to trick the system, to trick the algorithm to give the answer he is expecting him to give. You have also vulnerability on the platform. That's one of the attack mentioned by the Etsy. Clearly, if your platform is just compromised, the whole AI solution has issue. If you want to have more detail actually on the mitigation measures against this threat, I really encourage you to look at the recent publication from the Etsy. Very well done, understandable diagrams about their multi-layered approach. Actually advocating for pre-trained model, very interesting reading. And it's not only about Etsy, the ENISA, so the European Security Agency has been publishing also a very good document last December, summarizing the threats and proposing mitigations. The threats basically were the same. It was on the data itself, on the data model, on the data platform. They actually introduced even this idea of supply chain attack. But you see that when you see this complex system, it's not only an issue of technology. it's broader than this. Obviously, we have challenges on the technological side because deep neural networks can be extremely complicated, especially if you have hundreds, thousands of layers of intelligence. It can actually lead to lack of transparency in the diagnostic phase. It involves many different skills to do the analysis. And technology is also very important when you think about the protection of your data. I was mentioning cloud before AI. I mean, there is a clear link between securing the platform, hosting the AI, and AI algorithm as such. But we have also other elements which are coming into the game when you think about AI security. It's about a societal challenge. How are we making sure that data privacy is ensured? How are we making sure that there is no bias in the way we are collecting, generating data, which can lead to unfair judgment? That's one thing. We have laws and regulation. It's also a big part which will take a big role in cybersecurity of AI. And as any new domain, well, there is kind of level of maturity to raise also on laws and regulation, because I believe maybe today we're lacking a bit of maturity in this domain. I would like to give a few minutes to speak about 5G. Well, as actually a takeaway for this part for AI, what I would like to do is maybe to advise you to go and look at what, sorry, I forgot the name, at the Global Digital Foundation, which is an industry-led initiative, very interesting. They are actually proposing a multi-layered governance framework for AI, which tries to actually map with the GDPR role-based regulation. So very interesting stuff. I really encourage you to have a read and have a look at it. So like I said, well, 5G, couple of words on 5G security, because first it's a big part of digitalization. And we have been talking a lot about cybersecurity for 5G in the communities in the past months and years. And we had this feeling from the center here sometime that there is kind of confusion between many terms in 5G, between risk, between vulnerability, between security features, between threats. And sometimes it was good to remind that 5G is bringing a tremendous amount of new security feature. It is more secure than the previous generation. It's actually inheriting to all the decades of evolution of other generation of security, and is bringing new features. So we have been, well, many organizations are working on this, international organization. You have the 3GPP, you have GSMA. So those are international organizations which have dedicated work group working on 5G security. Very, very important and interesting stuff that they're producing. They actually co-develop and co-design, that's what is behind me, a new scheme, well, assessment framework for the telecom sector. It's called NESAS, N-E-S-A-S. And it brings many benefits when you consider that it's telco-oriented, telco design, it's authoritative somehow in the telco industry. It has the definition of the critical asset of the telco world, the assurance methodology. It has the definition of a threat analysis. So many added value. It is always in a continuous improvement, welcomes feedback. It's open framework. We had a previous or first version a couple of years ago. The new version has been released beginning of this year. And actually, it's so interesting that even at EU level, the Commission, I know it's not the rule of everything, but it gives a good sign, that EU is preparing a new 5G scheme for the EU market to certify product in 5G. They are looking at very high interest what NISAS has been doing in the past and what is bringing. So that is very important to remind that 5G is actually release after release has been actually proposing new security features. And actually, I had a couple of them that I wanted to highlight, and then I will finish with one small thing I wanted to finish with. So security features of 5G. Today, well, let's call it the previous telco generation, the IMSI, which is this number which is going from your device to the base station, is not encrypted. 5G is actually correcting these type of vulnerabilities. Operators and national authorities do not have to apply it, but at least with 5G, they have the possibility to encrypt this type of information. So that's a massive win. If you had the chance in the past to go to any hacking conference, you have always a guy who is actually showing an example where he's able to use SS7 vulnerability to actually compromise an operator network and make a request to let's say a database, a HLR database. That is coming from actually the standard itself of the previous generation. 5G is correcting, is bringing so many defense and protection against this type of attack that it has to be kept in mind that is bringing real added value in security. We will extend the length of the keys from 128 to 256 in the next release of the telco generation, just to make sure that when you think about the future quantum computing, that is actually ready to secure correctly our networks. And finally, one important functionality which is brought by 5G, it's about the unified authentication. And I think that anyone in the audience who has been involved in implementing an IAM solution know what I'm talking about. So unified authentication is a massive win on the network. And that 5G is bringing this. So I just mentioning it so we don't forget that 5G is bringing extremely good stuff in terms of cybersecurity. And I'm not actually saying that that's the only thing we should look at, and we do not should look at the risk. I am a security professional, and for the past 15 years, I am advocating each time that I can to base the defense on the risk-based approach. That's the only healthy principle to use. I just wanted to highlight this once again. Speaking of risk, what I would like to show as the last thing to close my talk, actually, it's a tool that we have been developing at Huawei. Maybe, Marianne, you can come with me. So I told you at the beginning of the talk that I was not a salesman, so I'm not selling you a Huawei's product here. I'm just showing you a product where Huawei people have been actually working on. What we did is we have been collecting all the information from diverse organization groups we are taking part on 5G security, our own experience, the tremendous work which has been done by the EU Commission, the NISA, summarizing all the potential threats on 5G. And we have been actually categorizing, so listing and categorizing these different technical threats in four categories. And you see that we have a list of actually potential threat from 5G networks. What we have been doing is we described what was the threat with words, also with some pictures. The idea was that anyone in an organization, whatever level, can understand the threat, because here I'm speaking about DDoS. Well, anyone understands DDoS, knows what DDoS is. More doubtful that anyone understands what ARP spoofing is. So the point is everyone understands, we have a common language, and based on this, we are proposing mitigation measures. If you are an operator, if you are a regulator, if you are a vendor, we are proposing what we think good technical mitigation measures. Like I said, it is not a Huawei tool. We want it as agnostic as possible. It's not a list of features that Huawei has in the product. That's just a contribution to the community, showing once again, and I hope you understood from all my speech, that collaboration, coordination, dialogue is very key if we want to build together this digital intelligent world. And with that, I think I will just close my speech, and I will just wait for your question. Maybe I can sit down over there and respond to your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yoann. Very successful and useful presentation. We received one question for you.
Yeah.
You can hear us, right? Okay. Before we end, we have one question. In your opinion, the software industry puts a strong effort in having a product certified, but not in evaluating the process itself. How can we balance between the two, and why is evaluation of the process equally important?
Okay. Well, I think indeed that's a good point. Today, what we see is that the standard, the certification are usually focusing very much on the product itself, which means that sometimes we are forgetting that we evaluate the product, the process. And it's focusing on one specific product, one specific version, and when you move from one version to another one, it's difficult to keep the certification. So like the question has been raised, indeed we should balance a bit the effort into the product certification and the processes, because somehow if you make sure that your process are actually compliant with a high level of security, it's somehow the future that you protect. You protect. You make sure that the future version will be well designed, well produced. So that is very, very important. And the good thing is that when you see all the new standards coming, there are more and more taking this into account. And I think that's every one of us, we should just promote this approach.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyways, I don't see any more questions. Therefore, I would like to thank you for this presentation. If you have anything else to add, please, you can do it, or you say hi or actually greet them and invite them to visit you on Huawei virtual booth, to have conversation with you, to arrange meeting, and to find out the new solution and the products from Huawei technology.
Yeah, will be pleased. I just put my details, so if anyone wants to reach out to me and is a bit shy to raise question online, but prefer to do it on private, just contact me here or via your platform of your security summit, which is amazing, and I know that some people already did, so continue to do so.